In 1719, a pirate captain walked through the front gate of a garrisoned British fort on the West African coast. Not to attack it, to ask for dinner. Every cannon on those walls could have blown his ship apart. Every soldier inside could have hanged him on the spot. He walked in anyway. Why would any man, pirate or otherwise, walk into a fully armed British fort? Unless he already knew something everyone else didn't. He had 70 men on that ship. Men who had mutinied before. Men who had voted for him, trusted him, followed him across the Atlantic. He told them he was going to capture that fort. He didn't explain how. He simply said, "Leave it to me." Before we go any further, here's the question I need you to sit with. Did those men trust him enough to wait on that ship? Or was this finally the moment his own crew turned against him? And what happened when he walked through that gate? What unfolded next wasn't piracy. It was theater, executed by a man who understood that the most dangerous weapon in any room is the one nobody knows you're carrying. Howell Davis was a Welsh sailor who had spent years as a merchant officer on the Guinea coast, the very waters we're looking at now. He knew this coast better than almost any pirate alive. He knew its forts, its governors, its trade patterns, and critically, he knew where the money was kept. After seizing his sloop at Martinique and being elected captain by democratic vote, Davis had a crew of roughly 70 men in a burning need for money. He steered for Guinea. His crew voted for it. And Davis told them exactly why. His professional career as a slave trade officer had given him something no other pirate on the coast had: a precise, insider knowledge of which fort held the most gold. The crew were nearly 70 strong, a serious fighting force by any measure. They needed a course. Opinions divided, and the vote, by majority, carried for the coast of Guinea. Davis voted with them. Of course he did. He had been waiting for exactly this. When the question came, what was worth targeting on this coast? Davis answered without hesitation. Gambia Castle, he told them. There was a great deal of money always kept there. It would be worth their while to make an attempt upon it. Then someone asked the obvious question. The castle was garrisoned. It had soldiers. It had guns. How exactly did Davis plan to take it? Davis's answer was 4 words. Leave it to me. The crew had watched this man seize a sloop at Martinique in complete darkness without firing a shot. They had voted him captain. They had signed his articles. They had, by now, developed something approaching a religious confidence in his ability to do exactly what he said he would do. They agreed, without even asking what the plan was. A crew of pirates committed to attacking a garrisoned fort without being told how. That is not recklessness. That is the specific authority Davis had spent months building. Gambia Castle, also known as Fort James, sat on a small island in the Gambia River, about 30 kilometers from the river's mouth. The island was barely a third of a hectare in size. The fort occupied almost all of it. It was a proper military installation, roughly square in plan. Polygonal bastions at each corner, each mounting 4 or 5 artillery pieces. Guns that commanded the river in every direction. Nothing sailed into the Gambia without passing within range of those cannons. It had been captured and rebuilt 4 times in the previous 25 years, by the French in 1695, 1702, 1704, and 1708. Most recently, it had been completely reconstructed between 1714 and 1717. The stone Davis was looking at was 2 years old. The guns were loaded. The soldiers were there. And inside, gold. Bar gold, traded up from the interior along the Gambia River. Ivory. Rich goods. the accumulated wealth of the Royal African Company's West African operation. Davis didn't plan to sail his ship at this fort and open fire. Those guns would have destroyed him before he got within range. He had an entirely different idea. When the buck came within sight of Gambia Castle, Davis gave his first order. Every man not essential for sailing, below deck, out of sight. What the fort's sentries looking down from the walls would see was a lightly crewed merchant vessel. Understaffed, unthreatening, entirely consistent with the trading traffic that used this river every week. Davis ran close under the fort's walls and dropped anchor. The most dangerous pirate ship on the West African coast had just parked itself directly beneath the guns of a British fort. And the garrison didn't blink. Then the boat was ordered out. Davis selected 6 men, dressed in ordinary working clothes, common sailors, unremarkable. He himself, along with the ship's master and doctor, dressed as merchants, gentlemen of commerce, men who might legitimately have business with a fort governor. Before stepping into the boat, Davis drilled his men on the cover story. Liverpool merchants, bound for Senegal to trade for gum and ivory, chased off course by 2 French warships, cargo of iron and plate, a hamper of liquor as a gift for the governor. Every element had a purpose. The French warships explained why they were in the wrong river. The iron and plate gave the governor a reason to trade. The liquor gave him a reason to smile. Davis didn't want the governor suspicious. He wanted him grateful. Davis had also instructed each man going ashore to conceal 2 pairs of loaded pistols beneath their clothing. 9 men, 36 concealed pistols, all of them smiling. Before stepping into the boat, Davis gave the men aboard the buck 2 orders. First, watch the flagpole. When the Union flag comes down from the castle, that means Davis is master of the fort. Send 20 armed men ashore immediately. Second, that sloop anchored nearby. Quietly secure her master and crew before they can see anything, hear anything, or warn anyone. The garrison was the obvious threat. The sloop was the invisible one. Davis had already neutralized it before he'd set foot inside the fort. He had never seen the inside of that castle. He had already planned for a leak nobody else in the crew had even noticed. At the landing place, they were received by a file of musketeers, the standard colonial military welcome for arriving merchants. Arms present, eyes watchful, routine. They were conducted through the gate and into the fort, where the governor met them civilly. He asked who they were, where they had come from. Davis answered smoothly, in the voice of a Liverpool merchant slightly inconvenienced by French warships, grateful for the governor's hospitality. Liverpool, the River Senegal, French men of war, iron and plate, a hamper of liquor. The story landed perfectly. The governor was not suspicious. He was pleased. He had European goods to buy, iron to acquire, and the prospect of a good dinner coming. He invited them all to stay and dine with him. While the conversation moved along pleasantly, Davis's eyes were very busy in observing how things lay. He saw the sentry at the entrance. He saw the guardhouse beside it, where the soldiers on duty waited between watches, relaxed, off their guard. And he saw their arms, muskets and pistols, standing in a corner of the guardhouse, in a heap, not on their persons, not in their hands. He saw the governor's hall, the walls hung with small arms, loaded, reachable, but not in anyone's hands either. A garrisoned fort is only dangerous if its soldiers are armed. Davis had just discovered that in this fort, at this moment, the soldiers and their weapons were separated. That gap, 2 meters of floor, a corner, a heap of metal, was everything. Davis had brought one other asset into the fort that nobody noticed: his coxswain, the senior boatman, a man trusted enough to carry the captain's most sensitive errands, had the freedom of the house as preparations for dinner proceeded. The coxswain moved through every part of the building, assessed the full strength of the garrison, counted men, noted positions, and then, in a moment when they were completely alone, whispered a full report directly to Davis. Davis now had a complete tactical map of the interior of a fort he had entered as a merchant 18 minutes earlier. Davis excused himself. Ship's business. He'd be back before dinner, and he'd bring the liquor personally. The governor didn't blink. Why would he? Responsible captain. Completely ordinary. Back on the Buck, Davis was fast. He armed each man going back in with him with 2 pairs of pistols each, concealed. Then one final instruction to the men going into the guardhouse: blend in, talk to the soldiers, stay relaxed, and wait. The signal? A pistol shot through the governor's window. The moment they heard it, get between the soldiers and their weapons, every arm secured before a single hand could reach for one. He was walking back into that fort to end it. His men in the guardhouse were already cocked. He was the trigger. Davis returned to the fort with the hamper of liquor, and here, history handed him an unexpected gift. Dinner was not ready. The governor, gracious host that he was, proposed they pass the time making a bowl of punch. The delay gave his men in the guardroom more time to settle in, to relax the soldiers, to observe the rhythm of the room. The punch was mixed. Cups were poured. The governor talked. Davis listened, responded, smiled at the right moments. His eyes moved to the window, the courtyard beyond it, the arms on the walls, the door to the hallway. At some moment in that quiet room, when they were completely alone, just Davis, the master, the doctor, the coxswain, and the governor. With the punch mixed and dinner still not on the table, Howell Davis reached beneath his coat. He pressed the barrel to the governor's chest. Surrender the fort, or you are a dead man. The governor was no ways prepared for such an attack. He promised complete compliance, immediately. Davis's men shut the door. They took down every arm hanging in the hall and loaded them. Every weapon now in pirate hands. Then Davis fired his pistol through the governor's window. Outside, Davis's men in the guardroom had been waiting for exactly that sound. They moved the instant they heard it, placing themselves physically between the soldiers and the heap of arms in the corner, pistols cocked and leveled before a single soldier could process what was happening. One man carried the soldiers' weapons out of the room entirely. The soldiers were locked inside the guardhouse and guarded from outside, while few of his men take down the Union flag. On the river, the men aboard the Buck had been watching the flagpole since the moment the boat left. When the Union flag came down from the top of the castle, 20 armed men pushed off immediately and came ashore. They got possession of the fort without the least hurry or confusion, without a single man lost on either side. Davis harangued the garrison soldiers. He offered them a choice: join the crew or take their chances on the disabled sloop nearby. A great many of them joined. Those who refused were sent to the sloop. But Davis had stripped her of sails and cables first, so she could go nowhere. That day was spent in a kind of rejoicing. The castle fired her guns to salute the ship. The ship saluted the castle. The governor, presumably, had mixed feelings about the punch. 9 men, 36 concealed pistols. A cover story rehearsed in a boat on a West African river, and a plan built entirely on one insight: that a garrisoned fort is only as strong as the distance between its soldiers and their weapons. Davis did not fight the fort. He walked into it. He observed it. He fed it punch. And when the moment was precisely right, he fired one shot through a window. In his entire career, Howell Davis would never be more dangerous than when he appeared most harmless. Next time on Plunders and Prey, Howell Davis will disguise himself as a Royal Navy officer hunting pirates. He will sail into a Portuguese colonial capital, flying false colors. He will be invited to dinner by the island's governor. But this time, someone already knows who he is.